Yoona breaks her silence, the truth about her secret love finally revealed. The question that shook the entertainment world: who truly holds Yoona's heart? After years of rumors, speculation, and quiet denial, Yoona's sudden confession has left everyone speechless. Was it the charming co-star fans have shipped for years? The loyal friend who stood by her side? Or someone the world never expected? Behind the glittering lights and perfect smiles lies a story of love, choice, and truth waiting to surface. Join Red Carpet Revealed as we uncover the confession that no one saw coming, and the name that changes everything. The world always believed she was untouchable. Perfect smile, flawless grace. The kind of woman who could silence a room just by walking in. For years, Yoona lived inside that illusion. Shaped and polished until even she began to forget the person she used to be. To the public, she was everything: beauty, talent, discipline. But behind the lights, there was someone else. Quiet version of herself that waited, trembling, for the day she could finally speak. That day came without warning. It was supposed to be a regular interview. One of dozens arranged during her anniversary campaign. A chair, a camera, a warm light bathing her face, routine, rehearsed. But the interviewer asked a question she hadn't heard in years. Is there someone special in your life? The silence that followed lasted less than 5 seconds. But the internet would later call it the pause that stopped the nation. Yoona smiled, eyes lowered, and said softly, "Yes." The room froze. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Unsure if she was joking. She wasn't. Confession spread faster than the wind. Within hours, Yoona's secret love dominated every trending list. Millions of fans dissected every word, every syllable, every expression on her face. In that single moment, she had done what no one thought she ever would: she broke her silence. But this wasn't a sudden outburst of courage. The culmination of years spent suffocating in a world that worshipped her image and punished her humanity. Those who worked with her said Yoona was always calm, polite, never once losing her temper even when surrounded by chaos. Yet, in private, she carried the weight of endless rumors, stories linking her to co-stars, directors, and businessmen. The agency carefully managed each scandal before it could breathe. She smiled through the lies, repeating the same answers: "I'm focused on my career. I have no time for dating." It was believable. It had to be. But late at night, when she sat in her dressing room removing layers of makeup, she would look at her reflection and whisper, "How much longer can I keep pretending?" It was that she had been in love for years, with someone the world would never suspect. He wasn't famous. He wasn't glamorous. He belonged to the red carpet. He was part of the invisible machinery that kept her world running, a quiet photographer named Jisoo. He had been there since the beginning. The man behind the lens when she filmed her very first commercial. While others saw her as a product, he saw her as a person. And maybe that was what terrified her the most. It started as friendship. On set, he would bring her coffee the way she liked it, warm, not hot. 2 sugars, no cream. She thanked him once, genuinely, and he smiled. Not because she was Yoona the star, but because she was simply her. Over the years, paths crossed again and again. Each encounter brief but unforgettable. He became her silent anchor. The person who reminded her that fame wasn't the same as love. But in their world, silence was safety. The industry didn't forgive emotions. Agencies signed contracts with invisible clauses that dictated how one should live, speak, and feel. Love was a liability. And for Yoona, it could mean ruin. Still, she couldn't help it. She found herself looking for him in every crowd, recognizing his camera flash before anyone else's. Sometimes, she would catch him watching her, not as a fan or a journalist, but as someone who understood her loneliness. They never exchanged anything beyond polite words. Yet an unspoken bond grew between them. Fragile but undeniable. Then came the scandal that almost ended her career. A tabloid released a photo of her entering a cafe at midnight with a man whose face was blurred. The internet erupted with theories. Her agency denied it immediately, releasing a statement that the photo was a fabrication. Scandal faded, but Jisoo disappeared. She tried to reach him. Number was disconnected. His social media gone. A month later, she received a brown envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photo, her standing on a bridge at sunset, unaware she was being watched. On the back, in small handwriting, were the words, "You once told me that truth is light. Don't be afraid to shine." That was 2 years ago. Now, sitting under studio lights, she was finally ready. The interviewer didn't expect an answer. Certainly not this one. When she said yes, the air in the room changed. For the first time in years, Yoona looked free. The confession wasn't detailed. She didn't name him. She didn't have to. She simply said, "He was there when no one else was. He reminded me that love doesn't need applause." The reaction was instantaneous. Fans flooded her social media with love and confusion. Some celebrated her honesty. Others demanded to know who the mysterious man was. Her management remained silent for 24 hours. Then released a brief statement. Yoona is grateful for the support and asks for understanding during this personal moment. But the internet doesn't understand silence. It feeds on it. Within days, amateur detectives began connecting dots. Comparing old behind-the-scenes footage. Zooming into group photos. Analyzing every smile and glance. The name Jisoo surfaced on fan forums, spreading like wildfire. Old photos of the quiet photographer resurfaced, most showing him standing in the background, unnoticed, camera in hand. As his name trended, another story emerged. Anonymous insider claimed that Jisoo had been forced to leave the agency years ago after violating a confidentiality clause. Rumor had it that he refused to destroy personal photos of Yoona, pictures that captured her laughing naturally, away from the cameras. The agency called them unapproved images, for Jisoo. For memories. The revelation reignited a conversation long overdue. What does privacy mean for someone who lives under constant surveillance? Can a person own their own image when the world insists on sharing it? Through it all, Yoona said nothing. Attended events. Smiled for cameras. Pretended not to notice the reporters shouting his name. But those close to her saw the difference. Smiles lingered longer when someone mentioned photography. Her eyes softened when asked about forgiveness. The world obsessed with confession. Her silence became her loudest truth. 3 weeks later, she released a handwritten letter on her social media. It began with gratitude and ended with heartbreak. Someone who once reminded me that I was more than my reflection. Met when dreams were small and hope was bigger. Life took us apart. But not everything disappears when distance grows. Some things just wait. She never confirmed the name. Yet the world already knew. As part of her reflection campaign, Yoona decided to release a short documentary titled Light in the Mirror. It was meant to celebrate her career milestones. Viewers quickly realized it was something else entirely. The film opened with behind-the-scenes clips, her laughing, exhausted, eating noodles with crew members. And then, a single frame, a blurry silhouette holding a camera, just out of focus. In the closing scene, looked directly into the lens and said, "The person behind this camera taught me how to see myself." That one sentence was enough to set the internet ablaze again. The tabloids called it the most poetic confession of the decade. Others called it reckless. But those who understood her story felt something different, a sense of quiet liberation. For once, Yoona wasn't selling a product or maintaining an image. She was telling the truth, gently, fearlessly, beautifully. Her management scrambled to control the narrative. A new wave of PR statements tried to soften the impact. The film is metaphorical. Yoona's words should not be taken literally. There is no romantic involvement. But denial was useless now. The story had already escaped their control. While executives worried about brand deals, fans around the world began sending letters and artwork to both Yoona and the missing photographer. Messages of support poured in. "Love doesn't need permission. Thank you for reminding us stars are human. If he sees this, tell him she's still shining." For the first time, the conversation wasn't about gossip. About truth. Every generation has a story that breaks the rules. For Yoona's, this, the quiet rebellion of a woman who dared to say she loved someone who wasn't supposed to exist in her world. And as her words echoed across timelines and television screens, somewhere, someone watched silently. Camera resting on his lap. Eyes glimmering with something between pride and regret. He didn't reach out. He didn't need to. She had already spoken for both of them. That night, as Yoona stepped onto the balcony of her apartment, looking out at the glittering city that had both crowned and caged her, she smiled. The rehearsed smile that had sold millions of albums and dramas, but the soft, private one meant for just one person. Wind carried her whisper into the night, "You were right. Truth is light." Far away, in a small dark room where photographs dried in silence, a single print hung under the soft red glow, a portrait of Yoona. Candid and radiant. Smiling at something just beyond the frame. Beneath it, handwritten in ink, she finally found the courage to be real. The confession had changed everything. For a week, the city pulsed with her name. The internet became a living organism made of speculation, admiration, and disbelief. People argued in comment sections and whispered in studios. Some said Yoona had betrayed her fans by falling in love, others said she had saved them by reminding them she was human. For every voice that condemned her, another rose to defend her. It was as if the entire world had been waiting for permission to feel something real. But truth is expensive. Every endorsement, every partnership she had built over the years trembled under scrutiny. Brands that once fought for her attention suddenly distanced themselves, issuing polite statements about reviewing contracts. Management moved swiftly, rearranging schedules, canceling appearances. She was told to stay quiet until the storm passed. Yoona refused. She began writing again. Small fragments of thoughts late at night. Silence doesn't protect you, she wrote once. Another time, love is not a scandal. Her words spread faster than her agency could contain them. Young fans quoted her posts like gospel, while reporters dissected every line. They tried to silence her. The louder she became. Then came the night of the award show, the first public event since her confession. The organizers debated whether to cancel her invitation. But they couldn't risk the backlash. When she arrived, the flashes exploded like lightning. She wore white, simple and unguarded, as if daring the world to look closer. During her speech, she didn't thank sponsors or staff. She said only, "To those who stood with me when I was told to stand alone, thank you. You know who you are." Those words echoed through the auditorium like a secret meant for one person. Where beyond the spotlight, a camera clicked once, then disappeared into the crowd. The next morning, a photograph appeared online, grainy, unfiltered, undeniably real. Yoona standing backstage, looking straight into the lens, smiling faintly. The caption read, "She saw me first." The photo was signed only with the initial J. It is the first proof in years that Jisoo is still out there. The image went viral in hours. Fans called it fate, critics called it manipulation. Reporters hunted him down. But he vanished again before anyone could confirm his existence. It was as though he had stepped into the world only long enough to say, "I'm still watching." For Yoona, the picture was a quiet miracle. Printed it and kept it on her piano, beside an old script from her first drama. Friends said she seemed lighter. Fear that had followed her for years had finally dissolved. She didn't hide anymore. She started accepting interviews again, but only on her terms. One night, during a live broadcast, a journalist asked her the question everyone feared to repeat, "Are you still in love with him?" The studio went silent. Yoona looked directly at the camera. For a long moment, she didn't blink. Then she said, "Love doesn't end just because people stop talking about it. It changes form. It becomes something you carry instead of something you chase." It went viral. But for once, it wasn't the gossip that trended, it was her honesty. Months that followed, she turned her pain into purpose. She began working on a short film titled Unscripted, about two people forced apart by fame. Directed it herself, using her own money. The crew was small, made up mostly of freelancers and students. She never explained the story. Everyone on set understood it came from somewhere deep. When the film premiered, it stunned critics. The story followed a singer who could never reveal the face of the person she loved because he lived behind the camera. The film ended with her singing to an empty theater. Echo of her voice filling every seat. No names were spoken, but everyone knew. That night, when the credits rolled, an envelope was waiting in her dressing room. Inside was a ticket stub from her first concert, dated nearly a decade ago. And a handwritten note, "I kept every photo you told me to delete. The world can have the rest, these are still ours." No signature. None was needed. After that, the world changed its tone. The headlines softened. Articles began calling her the artist who dared to feel. Younger idols mentioned her name when asked to inspire them. The same society that once punished her vulnerability began to celebrate it. Yoona's truth had started a quiet revolution. Still, fame doesn't forgive easily. There were nights when she doubted herself, Nights when she replayed her confession and wondered if it was worth it. But every time she opened her messages and saw letters from fans who said her courage gave them strength, she smiled. Maybe this is what love becomes. Wrote in her journal. A light that travels farther than you ever will. 2 years later, she stood on a stage again, this time not as an idol but as a filmmaker accepting an award for unscripted. As applause thundered around her, she said, "I used to think silence protected me. Silence only protects the lie. I hope my story reminds you that love, even when hidden, is never wasted." Audience, near the exit. A man with a camera lowered his lens and smiled. No one noticed him, but she did. Eyes met for a second, long enough to say everything that words could not. When the ceremony ended, she walked backstage alone. On her table lay a single photograph wrapped in thin paper. It was a candid shot, her laughing mid-sentence. Hair blown by the wind. On the back, a familiar handwriting, still light. That was the last message she ever received from him. Years later, she released a memoir simply titled The Light We Keep. It wasn't a tell-all or a scandal book. It was a love letter to truth itself. She never used his real name. But she wrote, "He was my witness. He saw me before the world did." If you ever find someone who sees you like that, don't hide. Readers wept. Critics praised her courage. The first time, Yoona didn't feel like she owed anyone an explanation. In her final interview before retiring, she was asked if she regretted breaking her silence that day. She paused, smiled softly, and said, "No. Silence was the only thing I ever broke that set me free." Night, she walked through the quiet streets without makeup. Without bodyguards, just herself. The city lights reflected off the glass buildings, scattering fragments of gold across the pavement. Somewhere in that glow, she thought she saw a familiar shadow holding a camera. When she turned, no one was there, only the hum of traffic and the whisper of wind. She smiled anyway. Because love didn't need witnesses anymore. It had already become part of her story, woven into every frame of film, word of song, every moment of courage that followed. And who once lived as a reflection had finally stepped into her own light. And the world, for once, shined without asking who she belonged to. Lights faded and the noise of the city softened into evening hum. Yoona stood by the window of her apartment and watched her reflection blur into the skyline. For years, she had lived in mirrors built by others, images crafted, perfected, owned. Now she saw herself clearly, unedited and real. The story that began with silence had ended in light. And somewhere, beyond the reach of cameras, someone who once held the lens smiled quietly, knowing she had finally found her truth. To everyone who still believes that honesty is strength, that love can exist without permission, it should never fear truth. Thank you. To the readers who followed this story with open hearts. Your empathy keeps voices like Yoona's alive. And to those who have ever hidden their feelings to protect a dream, may you one day find the courage to speak. And the world gentle enough to listen.